So that was the great bass line from this disco classic, Disco Inferno. The band is called the Trammps and the bass player is the great Ronnie Baker. So congratulations if you got that right. And disco music in general is really worthwhile checking out. It's a really important role for the bass player. The drums generally tend to be kind of 4 on the floor with the bass drum and then just a backbeat on 2 and 4 while the bass player kind of dances around the groove, playing eighth notes, anticipations, octaves, just really kind of holding the tune together and just dancing around the harmony. So this is a really good example of disco playing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break it down, analyze it, and just hopefully it'll give you some ideas for moving forward. So there's a document available for you to download that analyzes this transcription in detail along with a drum MP3 tracks. You can kind of play along with the transcription or just practice some of these techniques that we're about to talk about. So you might want to download the document now and just follow along with the analysis. So there's a 2-bar intro here that starts on the E flat on the 8th fret of the G string, moves down to the F on the 3rd fret of the D string, and then when it gets to that C, that's where the A section starts, and the main groove is just really basically a 2-bar phrase that just repeats with some simple variations. Now you'll notice that the bass line itself is all 8th notes, and there's some anticipations at the beginning of each bar. So the and of 4 is tied over to the and of 1 of the next bar, and that's kind of consistent throughout the whole A section. The bass drum is always constantly playing on each beat, so it has that kind of solid foundation, and the bass player is a little bit more loose and melodic, just kind of dancing around the harmony because the drums are so solid, and that's really a characteristic of the disco style. Okay, so let's get into the harmonic analysis. You can see here in the first 4 bars that it's just basically going from a C minor 7 to an F7 every 2 beats, and then on the 4th bar there's just a turnaround that just kind of repeats itself. So it's basically this whole section is 16 bars, and the variation really happens on the turnaround where we start using those characteristic octaves and fifths and all that stuff. So let's look at the notes that are being played here. There's a 8th note anticipation we've already talked about into the C minor, and basically the notes that are being used is just the root and the 5th, and then it gets into the F7. It just approaches that F from the flat 7th of the chord, and then from that point it's thinking about the C minor, how to get back to that C minor, and it's just anticipated with the B flat, so again a flat 7th approach, and also the groove is anticipated itself. So this has got a real nice momentum to it. Bar 2 is just a variation. So instead of just doing that E flat once, it just doubles up. So instead of going, and it just kind of adds that like nice cycle, that melodic cycle. So into bar 4 where the turnarounds happen, we get into a real characteristic disco sound there. So the premise of this groove is just basically, so C then walking back up chromatically to that C from the A, and he's just colouring it in here with octaves. So one thing you can do to practice this style is just practicing your octaves, chromatically moving up all the way to the 12th fret, back down, and then continue on the A string. A variation you can do of that, just doubling up on that octave, so it's just an 8th note followed by 2 16th notes. It doesn't happen here, but that's a very characteristic sound as well in the disco genre. You can just practice that, moving down chromatically up like it does there from the C. So there's plenty of things you can do technically to kind of get this feel together. Okay, let's move on to the next 4 bars, and basically when we get to the turnaround, he doesn't use any octaves or fifths, it's just straight up, just doubling the notes until you get to the B, and then the anticipation. The 3rd time around, it just has the octave on the A there, and then the last time, so it just goes from the C to the 5th. So this is some very, very slight variations, and that's just going to be instinctive to the player in the moment. Okay, let's move on to the B section. Okay, so let's get into the B section. There's some cool stuff going on here. It's all in the key of F. The time feel of the bass line has changed from all eighth notes to breaking it up with some quarter notes. This kind of gives the bass line some breath, and it also kind of introduces a new section. So it's really nice for the listener and just nice for the music. And it just really kind of helps make this bass line really cool and even more melodic. So what's going on here? Also, another thing to notice is the bass line is consistent throughout the tune in the fact that every bar is kind of anticipated by an eighth note. So like I said, the B section is an 8-bar section. It's in the key of F. The first 2 bars is F, then D minor, then 2 bars of B flat, 2 bars of G, then we have 2 bars of C7, and then those chords repeat. So let's see what's going on harmonically. We have F, walks down the scale, so it's F, E, D, walks down again to that B flat, and then again walks down to the G. So it's just... And once it gets to that 5, it then resolves itself to the C. So it's F, D minor, B flat, and G minor. On the G minor, it just walks its way up to the flat third, and then back to the C, which is the root of C7. On the C7 here, basically what is going on here is... And what he does is just come up with this really cool line and a cool way of kind of dancing around that really common way of walking around the C7 chord. So we have the third, and then instead of going, he breaks it up with this A. And also breaks it up with anticipated notes and quarter notes. So it's really kind of a melodic bass line in that sense. So again, the B section, first 4 bars. Repeats. And the next time it gets to that C7, it just stays there and pedals. And then back into the A section. So it's a really cool bass line. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you enjoyed playing along with the track, and we'll see you next time. Please share with your friends and comment in the area below. Okay, thanks.